We are live. Let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we're back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Flora. How's it going today, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing pretty good. It's finally the crazy weather has stopped here in Central Texas, and
nice.
I am ecstatic. We had a habubla or something, like some fancy word for a dust storm that came through.
Really? Oh, yeah. I didn't see that. Wow.
It was insanity. So
I can imagine, man.
Yeah. But how's everything going with you? You're down in Nashville. How's Nashville been treating you?
Yeah, Nashville's great. I mean, doing what I love, getting to be able to do it all day, every day, and do all the parts of being a musician is a lot of fun. Days I'm not playing on stage, I get to spend in a studio or in co-writes, and it's exactly what I moved out here to do. So I'm loving it.
Right. How often are you playing shows right now? Are you playing pretty consistently, or?
Yeah, I do about 8 shows a week. So I try to keep it above like 30 hours. I try to make it like my 9 to 5 if I'm playing in town. So get at least close to a 40-hour work week there.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you so you're pretty much doing that around town in Nashville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I go on the road a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty lucrative to just stay in town and play all day, and you get to play for people that love music all day. So yeah, it's kind of the perfect spot.
For sure. And so you said before we jumped on here that you've been out in Nashville coming up on 13 years?
13 years. I can't believe it.
Right. And you moved in from Virginia, correct?
Yes. Yeah. A little southwest Virginia right there.
Nice. And so how did you kind of get introduced to music? Like, obviously, Virginia feels like it's a very musically inclined area. Mm-hmm. Were you just kind of ingratiated into it at a young age from your parents? You find it yourself? How did you kind of get introduced to it?
Yeah, I mean, music was a huge part of my upbringing. Everybody in my family played and sang something. And so I grew up with instruments all over the place. My dad was a professional musician for decades.
Nice.
So he kind of steered me a little bit, through some of the pitfalls of early, professional musician life. Helped me, got my feet set under me and kind of just told me to run with it.
Right. And at that time, were you kind of singing or playing guitar, or like what were you kind of doing like when you first got in through the tutelage of your dad?
Yeah, so Dad started me on piano, which I'd recommend to everybody out there. Even if you don't become like a great piano player, just learning the basics. I mean, a couple months of piano lessons will help you tremendously. It's like I always look at it's like you develop the graph of music, so it's a lot easier to see things. But I never really, the way I put it is I never learned to express myself playing piano. It was up until guitar came around, and like my dad taught me a pentatonic scale on guitar. And I was like, oh, I can this is an emotional instrument. I do what people are talking about. Mm-hmm. And that was at a young age. I was singing harmony. My dad taught me to sing harmony real young. I mean, about 5, 6 years old. So we had a little family band. We'd play, and we'd all sing harmony with each other and stuff. And so that was a lot of fun. And then, so that was my upbringing. And then
nice.
Yeah.
And was it always kind of the goal to get out to Nashville, or was that like once you kind of really got into the scene, like into music, it was like, oh, Nashville's kind of where I need to be?
It was actually, I mean, it's a moment I'll remember forever. My dad got me a real nice guitar, a 1989 Les Paul Standard. It's still one of my favorite guitars.
Nice.
And and Heritage Cherry. It was a real cool day, and he kind of sat me down. I was 15. And he was like, man, he was like, I can see you're working real hard at this. He was like, I wouldn't put this carrot on a stick if I didn't think you could achieve it. He was like, why don't we get you on a plan, move you to a hub city, a music hub city. And then, he was like, there's New York, LA, Atlanta, Nashville, whichever ones, he was like, I believe you could actually make a run at this, you know, and he's like, I wouldn't tell you that if you couldn't. And yes, that was the day. And I was like, man, I mean, well, which one's closest to home? And, you know, and I had a couple of friends already out here in Nashville. So I was like, man, I'm leaning towards Nashville for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, it was also closest to home. So I was like, well, yeah, then let's, and then, so we set a plan, get through college. You know, he was like, you're going to need from his life as a professional musician. He was like, man, just do it. Like, get through college. You have my mom and I was blessing, and then just go for it, you know?
Right. That's always kind of an interesting conversation to have about do you get your college degree? Don't you? And it's like, in the back of your mind, it's like, I don't want to go to college, but you just never know, you know? So
yeah,
it's one of those things. It was a struggle that I had with my parents growing up. It's like, I don't really want to go to college. I want to go do my thing. But then again, my thing when I was 18 ended up being completely different than my thing when I turned 22.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, it's one of those things where you just don't know what you don't know. So,
and Dad mom and dad kind of led me through it. I didn't like it at the time, but now looking back on it, it's set my life up for success that I've had. Is they were like, you know, don't do if you want to, absolutely go in debt. And, you know, I think they couldn't just afford to pay for my college as I went. They're like, if you want to take out loans, all that, you know, then do that. But again, you know, why don't you do community college and transfer to an online program, just get your 4 years out of the way, and then, you know, and then hightail it out there. He was like, I promise it's going to feel like you're wasting a lot of time on this, but it'll be worth it in the end. And he was right. So,
right. When you were going through that process, were you kind of looking at like majors that could help benefit your music career, or were you just kind of taking whatever you thought was easiest?
I've always liked English, and that ties into music a lot, especially now that I've started songwriting a lot more. And the lessons I've learned with that was just kind of something that's good, you know, liberal arts degree. So, you know, it's very baseline. I was like, all right, I can go back to school with this degree. If I've checked off a lot of the boxes, it'll be real easy, either a law degree or, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's kind of where I was at with that. It's just kind of get like the foundation degree. And it's helped me out a lot. I mean, I channel a lot of those, you know, the traditional poets and writers and stuff with my songs. And they said it way better than most songwriters I've heard ever can, myself included, for sure.
I dig it. I love it. I love it so much. Oh, so then after school, you ended up moving out to Nashville. And were you like writing and recording while you were at school, or did you kind of take a break from everything as much as you kind of get school done and then start working on all that?
I was playing a ton through college. That's kind of how I paid my way. And I just in the Virginia scene, Southwest, around Roanoke area, right there. I was playing a ton through there. So that's whenever I started putting the pedal down, started coming. I visit Nashville a lot. I was out here about once every 3 or 4 months. I'd be out here and just kind of developing some connections, you know, as best I could. And then, so I was pretty much from like 17 on, I was playing professionally. And
nice.
Yeah. And then, you know, just got the momentum behind me. I was able to play. I mean, Roanoke has some great musicians, some great bands I was able to be a part of, really set me up again for success out here. So
Yeah, for sure. And so now you've been out in Nashville last 13 years, killing it, doing your thing. And how's Nashville kind of challenged you as a musician? I hear this phrasing a lot, that Nashville tends to kind of change and challenge musicians. So how's it kind of challenged you?
Yeah, well, so I'd say the first 5 or 6 years I was out here, 5 years, I moved out here as a lead guitar player. That's what that's kind of the first gig I got about 3 weeks into town, was playing with a band with my friends, with those connections I set up on one of the visits. And and then so I was a lead player, sang harmonies with them, sang a little bit of lead for them, but, you know, just kind of backup lead player. And did that, played with several other bands through those years like that. And then kind of just flipped a switch, and, you know, people start, the artists kind of moved away, that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, I'd like to really reset and do a little more what I did in Virginia, which is the acoustic singing thing, and maybe do some front some bands and whatnot. So I started doing that. And then the shutdown happened, and I was like, finally, I've got time to like sit and kind of get my ducks in a row of what I want my thoughts on writing.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of what I took, really started focusing on during the shutdown. And that's whenever I started becoming my own artist as a songwriter and doing this kind of stuff, and started building a little studio and that kind of thing, But the challenge is I've never, it's definitely challenging. I mean, it'll scare you to death if you're like, the talent that's out here. So, you just gotta have faith that, you can get through it. But I always look at it, we all get in ruts. I mean, every musician has that. And I look at it as such a blessing out here, because if you ever get in a rut, I mean, there's 20 different clubs, venues a night you could go to any night. Way more than that. That's on like the low end is 20 that you could just go into. And you'll instantly hear some of the best in the world. And then you can just, you're reinvigorated. If you try to absorb it, then you're not in a rut anymore. And that's, I've appreciated the challenge and all that. So,
yeah, for sure. So you'd mentioned that like once the pandemic hit, that's kind of when you started focusing on you and yourself doing your own thing.
Yeah. So, a couple of buddies of mine, we were playing we were doing the backyard Facebook lives or whatever, the Instagram, wherever the things were back in wherever the lives were, we did those concerts and all that. And then we just, we started recording demos. It had always been a dream of all of ours to get a studio kind of going. And I had a Pro Tools rig that was very basic. And it's like, but I had enough to record a drum kit. And I'm like, well, that's the challenge right there we've overcome. Right. So I was like, yeah. So, let's start, recording some demos and just very basic kind of recording of some songs for people to pitch around. And I really got into it and I was like, well, I've got a couple songs that are kind of there. And then I hooked up with people at Dead Horse and with Dead Horse Branding. And they've been, they've been some of my real good friends for a long time. And, and then they got behind me. I was like, well, all right, maybe we can pursue this artist thing, which has always been something I wanted to check off.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's the one thing that I really miss. There's not a whole lot to say you could miss about the pandemic, but the chances musicians were taking, just like those demos that you were talking about recording. A lot of musicians that I was working with at the time, they were like, yeah, I'm just putting these demos out because I didn't have the luck. I didn't have the foresight or the luck to go into studio right before pandemic. And I don't know when I'm going to get to go back in. So they just started doing like demo stuff, and it was amazing,
Right. I feel like a lot of my friends released songs and albums and all that through the majority of the people I'd say my musician friends released stuff through there. So, it was kind of nice just to have a chance to like breathe a little bit.
Yeah. When you were kind of trying to figure out who you wanted to be as a musician, you yourself, like who were you listening to? Were you like listening to other artists for influence, or have you always kind of known what you wanted to do?
It's changed over the years. Definitely. But my all-time influences, my top three vocally are definitely Greg Allman, Frank Sinatra, and Chris Cornell. Like that's the very top of the list there. And then, and then on guitar, I love like Derek Trucks a lot. I'm a huge Allman Brothers fan. Obviously Dwayne, Dickie, obviously, and Warren Haynes, all of them, Jack Pearson. But and then I found this band Big Wreck out of Vancouver, and they're a rock band. And I just, the guy sings a lot like Chris Cornell and just shreds guitar. I was like, man, if I could countryfy this a little bit, and I'd love to be that. Whoever, Ian Thornley. So, and then, that's a lot to bite off there at these beats.
Yeah. Well, and I love the diversity in the influences, like going from the Allman Brothers to Frank Sinatra to Chris Cornell. It's like, that seems like a very hard line to kind of through, but it all works. It all makes a lot of sense, you know?
Right, right. If you
So,
think about it, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So.
So yeah, that, like, as you were saying that, I was like, I was not expecting Frank Sinatra. That one kind of came out of left field, but you know what? Like, I feel like his showmanship and like there's just a lot that he brings to the table that I feel like kind of gets overlooked by a lot of singers, you know?
Yeah. Well, the power in his voice,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. God, it's been so long. I did a report in like high school on him. There's some type of like Italian opera that's very special.
Mm-hmm.
And he learned that as a kid. And it's basically, it's like super powerful, but not super loud. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not like abrasive, you know, it's not
Yeah.
like a big, powerful voice. It's like super controlled.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where, and then you think about Chris Cornell, he had that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that same kind of thing where he, you know,
Yeah.
big voice in the world, but he could lay back on it. You know.
Right. Because it's one of those things where you don't have to be loud to be powerful. Like, you could be assertive with your voice and let it carry, but you're not like yelling or screaming or any of that stuff. You're just kind of like your voice is present, you know?
Yeah, like
So,
engine braking is the way
yeah.
I could. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So or you're looks like you're in the studio now. Where are you kind of at creatively right now? I know you released some music towards the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got going on right now?
Yeah, so Santa Ana Wind came out at a terrible time for, you know, I released that in the fall, and it's really hit California hard this year. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, haven't really played it out very much because I don't want people to get the wrong idea there. But yeah, so thoughts and prayers to all them people out there. But like I say, and then I've got another song called Homebound that's coming out this Friday, March 7th. So that'll be out, yeah, here in 2 days. So
Nice.
big release on that one. And yeah, and I've got I'm working with a friend of mine, Buck Johnson, on a little EP we're going to be
Nice.
putting out. So with some amazing players, and he's a monster. I mean, he's on that just absolute top-notch level. I'm blessed to be working with that guy for sure. And yeah, I've got another album I'm going to try to put out. I'm not sure if we'll do like how many singles we'll do off that, but so I've got about 10 songs in the works right now that I'm kind of just, you know, throwing around. And yeah, so different little projects, and it just keeps building and building, and like keep trying to experimenting with different sounds and stuff.
Staying busy. Sounds like that's what I'm hearing. So
Yeah, that's fun.
so with Homebound, what's the story behind that song?
This has kind of been my fun, like palate cleanser song. I've had it going on. I've been writing this song for a couple years now. And it was just kind of it was my feel good song. It was, and initially I never really truly I planned on releasing it. I don't guess it was just kind of my like fun song I write. It's about my dog, Sadie Mae,
Nice.
little dachshund. And, you know, I kind of wrote it about, that feeling of like coming off tour. You know, I really like to sleep in my own bed and be in my own house. And that's, you know, so that's always, so touring is kind of, you know, hard on me there by the end. Like getting home is just like, man, this can't take any longer. Like, so I tried to write that feeling. I was driving to the house and I was almost there. I was on the exit, you know, I'm like, oh man, all right, pretty much. I'm not going to jinx it, but I know I'm going to make it home. Like, all right, so now I can get, you know, real happy. And yeah, I bet my dog's sitting out in the front yard like she always is. And she's, you know, probably waiting on me, hopefully, and all that. And so I tried to bottle up that feeling and, just put it into a song. And then it kind of worked out because Homeward Bound was like Homeward Bound. It was my favorite movie as a kid. So I was like, man, that works out pretty good. Okay.
Right.
Like, and I won't make it obviously about a dog because I don't want it to be, you know, it could be about your daughter. It could be about any, you know, your girlfriend sitting out there, your wife, anything. And so, yeah, we tried to work. But for me personally, it's about little Sadie Mae. And that's why she's on the EP cover, the single cover there. That's Sadie Mae. But,
I love it. As you were explaining the background behind it, Homeward Bound immediately popped into my head. I was like,
yeah.
I was I was watching it like a couple months back because I had gotten like a free trial of like Disney Plus or something. And I was just sitting there, I was like, all right, let's see, what are the random movies from my childhood that I could just kind of sit here and watch? And
Yeah,
that was like one of the first ones that popped up. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're watching Homeward Bound. So
it's a great movie. I mean,
it
it's
is.
just, yeah, it's, yeah, timeless.
It is. It really is. So will this single or will Homebound be a part of the like bigger project, or is it like a standalone? Just like, okay, yeah,
I think we're releasing it as a standalone.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, we might put it on as like a bonus track. I might do something special with it and release it as a bonus or something like that. But
gotcha, gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha. Yeah, I figured I'd ask because it's the release strategies nowadays are like I feel like there's a million different ways to do it, and it's just kind of like whatever works for you at this point, you know.
right, right. Yeah, there's so many different ways of working the algorithm and that kind of thing. It's kind of
Yeah, for sure. Um, so with all that kind of going on, obviously feels like you're probably in the studio more times than you're not. How have the shows been in Nashville? Are like is the crowd starting to pick up now that like CRS and all that stuff is over?
yeah, yeah. Crowds are usually CRS week. I mean, yeah, it's pretty good, but yeah, usually St. Patty's Day is when the real like, all right, we're through the dark times, through the dead months. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that Nashville has any dark times, but then again, like I feel like if it was actually like a thing, it'd be like January. January would be like,
January is pretty brutal. Yeah,
yeah.
no doubt. Yeah.
Do you usually take that time to like pull back on the shows, or do you just keep going as long as they'll have you?
I've done different things over the years. I'll try to get on the road a little bit through those months, even though I know it's a nationwide thing after holidays. Most people just aren't going out as much or kind of burned out on the parties and all that. So, but yeah, going on the road is optimal in like January, February, and yeah, I mean, staying around town, there really are no dead months, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I do. I'll focus on a project or two a little harder through those months.
Right. I feel that. Outside of music, what do you like to get into? What do you like to do when you're not in studio or on stage?
Oh, well, oh man, I got expensive hobbies. I grew up on two wheels, so I've got dirt bikes and Harleys. And,
Yes.
love riding them. It's hard in the city. I do not like riding around in the city though. But
I don't like driving in the city, period. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking to get me a little supermoto or something to scoot around town with, just kind of easier than caging it in a car. But, and then, yeah, I mean, I'm a two-way enthusiast, so that kind of stuff. And yeah. And, yeah. And I mean, I like to cook, that kind of stuff and grill. And yeah. So, that meme where it says like once you turn like whatever the age 30 or something like that, and it's fourth and it's a grill, it's motorcycles, it's like a Corvette and it's, something. It's like you have to pick one of these as your personality.
right.
Like checked off a couple of them. So
Yeah.
all right,
It happens. I feel myself as I not slowly, as I creep towards 40 here over the next few years. I'm leaning more into the cooking and grilling. Like I'm actively trying to find a place to live so I can go buy a grill.
Yep.
And it's because like I live in an apartment now and it's like, oh, you can use the community grill. And it's like,
no.
You mean the one that's got like scabies and stuff on it?
Yeah. The uncovered camp grill. Yeah. That's no go.
Right. It's like nobody's cleaned this thing in probably about 5 years. And yeah. So.
Yep. That thing ain't gonna get clean either.
Nope. Ain't touching it. Ain't doing it. You guys can, get rid of it for all I care. So.
Yeah.
But no, that's really cool. And then as far as like upcoming shows, it's all pretty much your regular stuff around Nashville, or what do you got coming up show wise?
Yeah, doing just keeping on with it for at least next 2 months. I'll be in town. I mean, I've got some events on music related. A friend's getting married. Yeah, I'll be out of town for one of them weekends, and
nice.
But yeah, so just keeping on with it. Yeah.
Feel it. Nice. And music is your full-time thing. You don't have a 9 to 5, regular 9 to 5 or anything.
No, that's kind of how I justify playing so much. I'm like, I got my grandpa's old farmer in me. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, if I'm gonna be a musician, I gotta put 40 hours of work into
Performance.
yeah. So that's my 9 to 5. It's the way I look at that kind of, and it's also I look at it like it's the gym. It's kind of like go in there, you practice. Sure you're singing covers, but you learn how to each one. I mean, you learn to connect with an audience more. You're learning.
Nice.
Getting to test out new things, new riffs, new, directions.
What's the most random cover you've been ever asked to play?
There's some random ones. What was?
Or at least out of character. Like,
Yeah. Well, now everybody knows I do Frank. All my regulars know I do Frank, and they'll come into town, a couple times a year, and they'll request half a show full of Frank Sinatra. So I'm like, management.
nice.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I don't even know what's weird anymore. We do a lot of everything these days. I mean, it's just nothing feels like it's really out of left field very often anymore.
That's
Just random person, I ain't afraid to do Taylor Swift songs,
Fair.
They'll come in and request them. I'm like, sure, I got a guilty pleasure,
Yeah. I feel like nowadays it's become so cool to go into a bar and just start asking for like random B-side cuts, or like if it's a dude up there, let's go make him sing Katy Perry or something, something like that. And it's like, I feel like a lot of musicians nowadays, if they, especially like in Nashville, that are doing like the Broadway scene where it's like they're doing a lot of cover gigs, they know it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have one of these on deck ready to go at all times, because you just never know anymore. So
yeah. And there's so many new artists out there too. It's hard to keep up with them. I mean, every day there's new artists popping up.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody will come up and there'll be some like cute little kid, and they'll be like, "Can you play this artist?" And I'm like, you ask around the stage, anybody know who this is? I don't know. This must be one of the new ones. And, maybe somebody's going out there and asking for one of my songs too.
Yeah.
They're not, they're like, who's this guy?
Right. I dig it. Oh, who are you listening to right now? Who, as far as like either up and coming artists or just people that have your ear right now?
Oh, I mean, Lord, I've been listening. Dang, I've kind of been listening to this. I found this interesting. They cultivate a lot of jazz, like smooth, kind of like poppy kind of jazz stuff from the UK. And I've been just having them on repeat, actually. So I'm kind of in that phase for the last like 2 weeks. But other than that, I mean, shoot, who I have on the first list here would be,
I mean, honestly, not gonna lie, the jazz thing, that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I feel like it'd be very easy to kind of fall into the standards of like whoever's hot in country right now, like Jelly Roll or whoever. Like that'd be a very easy answer. But like UK jazz, I didn't even really put 2 and 2 together that there'd be much of a UK jazz scene.
Yeah. I don't even know if these people are from the UK or not. I just know the guy is, but I've been kind of listening to that a lot.
Nice. That's cool. That's cool. So one thing that we do here towards the end of every podcast, as we begin to wrap up here, we like to pass on knowledge to the younger musicians or musicians that are just kind of getting their start. So I'm going to ask you, what is one piece of advice you would like to leave behind for future generations of musicians?
Oh, man. I mean, a piece of advice would be,
or even something that you received when you were first starting that you just kind of always held on to.
Yeah. I mean, I've always gravitated towards the like soulful singers. I mean, I think Frank and Cornell and obviously Greg are very much that way. Like, I remember the day I let loose and let my soul out. It was a little coffee house in Rocky Mount, Virginia, and I was singing. I remember that day. So, I mean, if you're coming up, don't be afraid to have your own voice. I always think that. I think there are way less tone deaf people out there in the world than claim to be, for sure. You know, I mean, and so just let it out. No, every voice is unique, I think, and so we all have something to say and a way to say it. 100%. We're all given a voice. We're all blessed by the Lord to have a voice. So so
agree.
Use it. Don't be afraid to let it out and find that soul where it's there. So.
Right. And I think that diversity you kind of mentioned in music and tastes of music is only going to get greater. Like, I remember like growing up, my dad was like, nope, we always listened to jazz. In my household growing up, or my dad's household growing up, he was like, jazz, that's what we listened to. And in my mom, it was like, it was this. And now it's like, I listen to everything. So it's just like, I feel like that diversity and the wide variety of music people enjoy listening to is only going to get greater. And it's not going to be like a shameful thing to be like, I'm a country musician, but I'm influenced by insert hip hop artist here or insert rock artist here or, like whatever, so.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, but once again, I do want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast. If anybody wants to check out your music, where can they find you?
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. Appreciate it. Glad to be a part of this. You can look up Ross Flora Music on socials. And it's all, Ross Flora is out there. And it's, you can look Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, all the, anywhere you download or stream music, just type in Ross Flora. And I've got a couple EPs out there. And adding more to it every couple months. So,
nice.
Yeah. And I always say this, likes and follows mean the world to us. Anybody in the entertainment industry these days, or whether it be music, comedy, that kind of stuff. We need the likes and follows make our world go round. So please, like I say, look me up, Ross Flora Music. And like I say, it doesn't seem like much, but it definitely helps. So.
I got you. So, for anybody listening, we'll have Ross's Spotify and stuff, all that stuff in the description below. So feel free to go check it out now. And once again, really appreciate you joining us. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you all later. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Live and Amplified's Indie Fusion podcast. If you'd like to support anything Live and Amplified does, please follow us on all of our social media platforms at Live, the letter N, Amplified. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, any of them, all of them, at Live, the letter N, Amplified. And if you would like to buy any official Live and Amplified merch, you can do so at our merch shop, link in the description below. Once again, thank you all. Have a great day.